hustle, sweat. It's a way of life. Here, we're all walk-ons. We don't rest on our strengths. We dig deep and stretch them. There's a mountain of grit behind our glory, but we're not on our own. When we combine our strengths, great things happen. Ideas connect, thoughts collide, and potential is unlocked. We're flexible, nimble, strong. We're changing the world and changing with it. Nothing worth doing comes easy. We are Nebraska.
I want to thank you for taking time out of your very, very busy days to join us today. We are connected to via live stream to anybody who wants to come and watch, and we're also then connected to our major extension and research centers and to NCTA. And I think at some point, maybe in the Q&A session at the end, you'll get a chance to see the videos of the other sites. Please don't hold it against anybody if there's nobody in the room. For example, at West Central today, they have a major group of school students there, and so they're just absolutely engaged. And I said, hey, look, that's okay. We're all busy. So what do you think of the In Our Grit, Our Glory? Yeah? Okay. It resonates with the blue-collar kid from Cleveland, and it resonates with the grittiness of the people I've met since we've been here in Nebraska now going on, I think, 20 months. Jim Stedman, am not counting the months, except some days it feels like we've been here in a good way longer, and in other ways it feels like, oh, I have to keep reminding myself, it's only been a year and a half. It's only been a year and a half. Maybe you're reminding yourself, gosh, it's been forever. He needs to go. Listen, I just, we're going to run through some slides. I like the format that we used for our all hands in January, where we did what was called the Dean's Sprint. So we've got the deans who are going to each take no more than 3 to 5 minutes, and we were a little more liberal with them this time around. They could have more than one slide, but Jesse Brophy and Haley Apel have big shepherd's crooks, and I have a big gong, so 5 minutes max. It's impossible for us to cover everything that is going on, but I saw Chuck Hibbard just as I was coming in, and it's hard not to be just a huge sense of appreciation and humbleness in what we collectively accomplish. And 1,800 people strong, give or take. That number ebbs and flows with our seasonal work. Our staff, nearly 1,200 staff, 541 faculty, tenured, non-tenured faculty, and then 3,200 students in Kasner, a large number of students in CEHS that we get the privilege to engage with, and nearly 400 students strong at NCTA, a record number. So at the end of the day, I know it's cliche, but we put our people first here in this institute, and that's what makes us special. And I just want to keep saying that over and over. This is a very tiny list, so if you are in the room and last April 24th, you were part of our celebration, we had 36 faculty who were promoted or promoted and tenured. Would you stand up so we could just give you a round of applause if you were promoted this last year or tenured this last year? They're all working, aren't they? Okay, take a break. Congratulations to our colleagues. It's amazing. These are our new faculty. Again, all types of faculty. When I say faculty, I mean total faculty. And one of the beautiful things here about IANR is this, I wouldn't say it's lacking completely, but relative to other places I've been, sometimes the faculty can get a little bit hierarchical and a little bit structured. Here we embrace the power of all types of faculty, and we work hand in glove, hand in hand, to move the needle. And there's a deep appreciation for different types of faculty and what they do, but also a deep realization that nothing happens without our amazing staff. And so I love this, just let's get on with it, work collaboratively. But this is a nice screenshot of our new colleagues, our new faculty colleagues that have joined us since January of 2018. And a picture's worth 1,000 words. So if you run in, and some of these folks are in the room every year, it sounds like I've been here a long time. Twice now I've gotten to go on the IANR Rhodes Scholar Tour. And it is so much fun to get to know our new colleagues. The rule of engagement is you have to be here 3 years or less, but you're on a bus, and the faculty, IANR Faculty Liaison Council, which is not part of our faculty governance or shared governance structure, we visited and we talked about what this should look like and made the decision that every year we will make it from Lincoln over to the Scottsbluff. Every year. We'll take a different route. So we gave West Central REC a break this year, but we get a chance to then see this amazing state, and it's really amazing. Leadership. So we talked about our faculty who are succeeding, 36 colleagues who were promoted and tenured. Boy, that doesn't happen. Tenure and promotion in the academy is a faculty-governed, shared governance process. And it starts with the faculty in the units having bylaws that talk about and articulate what excellence looks like in our mission areas, including service and collegiality. And so this is a faculty-governed process. And then right from the faculty, it goes to our department, our unit leaders, our 15 academic unit leaders. And this year, as you know, from last fall through the spring and into the early summer, we had a pretty tall order to find amazing new colleagues to fill some pretty big shoes of 6 individuals that were making decisions in their own career path. And I just would like to have these individuals stand. I see Jim there. Gary, are you in here? Please, yep, please stand. Jim Stedman, please stand. Thanks, Rich. Thank you. David Jones, thank you. And then who are we missing? Linda's already retired and having fun in the sun. So let's give these 5 individuals a big round of applause. I also want to thank publicly Ron Yoder, who, as our Senior Associate Vice Chancellor, worked very closely with the departments, with those of you who were on our search committees. This was a Herculean effort to go through and invite all the candidates. And here's the outcome of those searches. Absolutely couldn't be more pleased with the output of these department unit leader searches. Julia Torquati is the one who's stepped in as Rich Bischoff moved into his role as Associate Vice Chancellor for IANR for Faculty and Academic Leader Success, and who's also serving as our Chief Diversity Officer. Julia has stepped in on a term appointment, but Martha's here. David Jones, who was in the previous picture. David, Martha, would you stand? Marianne Johnson. Marianne's here. Thanks. Marianne is joining us from Georgia. John Ruberson, we've stole John from Kansas, so from Kansas State, so he's coming up. And Lauren. Lauren is stepping in to fill the big shoes of Jim Stedman. Welcome to the team. Let's give them a round of applause as well. And we've been busy. Some days I go home and wonder, oh no, what's going on? But another group of leaders that have come in. Some of these leaders, Connie Reimers-Hild has stepped in as the interim lead for the Rural Futures Institute. And we'll talk more about the Rural Futures Institute. Jill O'Donnell is here. I didn't see Connie come in. But Jill, stand, would you? Jill is coming in for the Yider Institute. Thank you, Jill, very much. Clayton Kelling is double-hatted, just just a wonderful leader. Matt Almond and Terry Howell are two individuals. Matt's come in to provide leadership for the Nebraska Manufacturing Extension Program, and Terry's coming in as the executive director for the Food Processing Center. Both of those individuals are coming from industry, lots of experience, couldn't be more excited. Both understand the academy and the dance, the delicate balance that goes on between faculty of different types. Just lots of great folks. Amanda is filling in now for Stephen over at the Massengale Living Learning Commons. So wonderful group of new colleagues. Very glad they're here. Chuck Hibbard, would you stand there, please? Yeah. So Chuck went through his five-year reappointment process. Thank you to all of you who took part in the survey. All that was distilled. Let's give Chuck a round of applause. One of the conversations that I've had with each of the leaders on the senior leadership team that has gone through this, and last year, as you remember, both Ron and Archie went through, and they were reappointed in January for a second 5-year term, is that the jobs that we need them to do as leaders today look different in some cases than what they were hired to do. And so we've had a lot of deep conversation based on the input that we've received about the next 5 years and where we need to go. And we'll talk about some of that. Okay, this you can read for yourself. Collaborations are absolutely critical. The communities that we have that you all launched back in 2011 that we highlighted last year in November, absolutely critical. Last year we talked a lot about think local, act global, that 1970s saying that I used for the Huerman Lecture Series. But the truth is, we think local every day, and we think globally, and we act locally, and we act globally. We have an incredible reach that we'll talk about. These are some fun facts. Absolutely, if you take a look at the total economic engine of agriculture, farm receipts, cash receipts, I think this number is actually low. We found numbers as high as $25 billion. That's a significant positive net impact that agriculture and the harmonization of agriculture and natural ecosystem management and the people of Nebraska play. $6 billion in exports every year. And then there's a fact that for every dollar of export, there's another $1.28 in revenue that's generated related to logistics and transportation and other jobs. So that's another, outside of the $6 billion, another $8 billion that we're contributing. And then you think about, I talked about this amazing group of people we call Nebraskans, but also the place. You know, that 4,500-foot elevation change from west to east or east to west. Or the fact that we have 24,000 miles of rivers and streams. Or not up there on the screen, that if you were to pump out the water in the Ogallala Aquifer, the High Plains Aquifer, and pump it onto the surface of Nebraska's landmass, that we would be swimming in 40 feet of water, 40-foot deep pool. That's how much water we're sitting on top of, and that's what we're nurturing. Just absolutely fantastic. Number 2 in ethanol production. We talk a lot about the inputs from growing corn to cattle production to ethanol and energy. We talk a lot about the food, water, energy. I like to say food, water, energy, societal systems nexus. We wake up thinking about that every day. So we're very relevant in Nebraska. I think that the first 2 bullets, 47,000 ranches and farms in Nebraska. That just blows my mind. And those farms and ranches account for 91% of Nebraska's 45 million acres of land. It's pretty daunting. So I think that leaves Omaha, Lincoln, Memorial Stadium, and maybe the Tri-Cities left. Pretty incredible. The folks in Doherty Global Water for Food Institute talk about these UN Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. I'm really impressed at the connection, but I'm sharing this with you. When I think about IANR's impact on the state from the previous slide, our local impact, I also think about the SDGs. And if you haven't seen these, I asked Haley if we could figure out a way to take this slide, which is all linked, hyperlinked, enabled, and share it with you. But each of those you can drill down, and there's a really neat story, fact sheet, PDFs for each of these SDGs. There is no question in my mind that when you read these fact sheets, it just reinforces what we're doing here in Nebraska, the High Plains, the Midwest, the U.S., North America, the globe, that we are connected, interconnected on a in a global way, in a robust global way. And as you're writing those grants, as you're thinking about telling the story of your program, your unit, your center, our campus, the university, I think we might get a little boost by connecting back to these SDGs. And I wanted to share that with you. So our 6 communities started off as focus areas. We've made large investments. You've heard those stories. We saw the new faculty colleagues that joined us. We've seen our new leaders who are in transition. That transition and evolution continues. We have 2 very significant senior leadership searches. We're searching now. We have active searches underway for the Dean of Kasner, currently held by Tiffany Hang Moss on an interim basis, and then also for CEHS, currently being led by Beth Dahl. So those searches are going on. We have the new director, a search for the new director of the Vet Diagnostics Center. Al Doster retired after 40 years of service. That search is actively underway. We have a new IANR Director of Communications that we will be looking for, informed by a task force of faculty and staff and department leaders and center directors that helped us look at all of the folks engaged in telling the story of IANR, so we're on that. And just yesterday with our department chairs, heads, center directors, school directors, and our REC leads, we shared with them 24 faculty, tenure track faculty positions that have been released. That's about on par, half of the positions that the units are saying are important. After deep evaluation, about half were able to release and fund in a sustainable manner, okay? Just again to flash back from some data I shared with you before, I've asked Jen Muller, who's helping us look at trends. In 2007, we had 440 total faculty in the Institute of Ag and Natural Resources. As of last fall, we had, fall of 17, we had 541 faculty. So over a 10-year period, 101 new faculty, split between tenure track and non-tenure track in a nice balance. There's no, universities are not growing in that way, let alone large institutes like IANR. So we're investing in what? We're investing in our people, and I promise you we'll keep doing that. This is just a quick series of 4 slides I want to run through, just exciting things that have happened in the last 6 or 7 months. I've already talked about the launch of the Yider Institute. This was an incredible gift made possible by Clayton Yider, who grew up in Eustis, Nebraska. His statue is here. We have a garden here. He was just an incredible individual. Unfortunately, I never met him. He passed away after a battle with cancer. I have met his family and his wife, Christy. But he was a planner. He planned for $8.5 million that would then be given to the University of Nebraska's foundation to fund a global center on trade, international trade and finance. in his life. And I will tell you, even in his death, how much foresight, because we found ourselves, just as the ag economy seemed to be getting out of it, we find ourselves in this complex international dialogue around trade negotiations, everything from the TTP to the reaffirmation and refinement, renegotiation of NAFTA to a series of bilaterals. A very complex world that we're living in, and how insightful this was. Research highlights, I would just say, I couldn't pick out everybody, so I picked out 4. And I will promise you that we'll move this around. I'm still trying to figure out how we do this. I'm really mindful of work-life balance, and Saturdays, Science Saturdays make that's fun. I said to my wife, if I didn't have a family and if I didn't have any work-life balance and I didn't care about anybody else's, every Saturday morning we'd just get together with one of your groups and visit with a faculty member and your team to talk to us about all the cool things you're doing. I think we might try something like this on Friday afternoons, just to have a nice chance to keep our science, our discovery agenda always up front, because that's really what sets America apart from other countries, that spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship. Ed Cahoon, who's in the audience, Ed, thank you for your team's work. This is a big deal. In fact, if you want to know more, you can go to Nebraska TV and radio. Ed's done some spots on KRVN on Saturday morning. I did my best job to highlight your work. Fatty acids, I've said on the radio, 34 years in education as a student, as a faculty member, I've never known anybody who's discovered a fatty acid before. And Ed and his colleagues have discovered 2. And it's been a long time since we've discovered fatty acids. Not only any old fatty acids, but 2 fatty acids that are longer than the typical vegetable oil fatty acid. Instead of 16 to 18 carbons long, they're 24 carbons long. They've got some interesting folding and some interesting saturation or unsaturation. I listened to Ed's spots. Somebody asked, are they edible? He says, well, they look a little bit like castor oil, and we all know what castor oil does when you eat it, so that's a rough thought before a picnic. But when we think about what these discoveries might mean for health outcomes, or for sustainable, renewable lubricants, I think this is a big deal, very exciting. Jumping over to the other side in that picture, Judy Wu Smart and her team looking at pollinators, some really neat work about using our medians and using our green space along our highways to think about pollination and pollinator health. And then Santosh Pitla's group there, highlighted in the middle. And then kind of fun, I had the chance, JM and Nathan Rice came, and they pulled a group of us together, and I was, of course, late, so they came and brought me up to speed a little more. But this is a $1 million NSF grant that is really tied to science and ag literacy, but it really is a program that targets middle school and high school students to get them thinking about how you look at complex integrated systems like these global grand challenges that IANR is trying to address. And oh, by the way, learn a little bit about their state in the Midwest. They have 2 versions of the game. They're both in beta version, if you will. One is an online version called Agpocalypse 2050, which ties back in really smart. They're using true models that our producers use every day to look at weather and climate and biofuel production and cropping systems and nitrogen and water use. They're tied into these models, really neat. But how do you feed a growing world? And what decisions do you make to make sure that we're producing our food, both livestock and crop farming, but at the same time taking very good care of our soil, our water, our air, and where's Larry Van Tassel making a profit, right? So very real. And then there's a board game version, and I brought my board game that it reminds me of Pandemic. So theirs is called Preservation, and you can see Jenny and company playing it. If you're really interested, you can buy the game for $31.99. That's 44 cents more than the cost of making the game. And you can go to that website and you can purchase it. I'll just tease Nathan Rice a little bit. Nathan, almost every day, twice, 3 times a day, looks at the website to see how many games have been sold. And they're on this website. I ordered my game. I teased him. He says, there's this little tag that you can say when you put it in your cart. You can call it a nibble. It's kind of like you're like cruising around the edge. You're not sure you want to buy it yet. He gets really excited with nibbles. So I just nibbled it yesterday. But I intend to purchase this game. And it's pretty neat. It's a great effort. And again, 4 examples, very different examples of the creativity of our faculty, our staff, and our students, because they're all involved. So just absolutely. I want to shout out to Nebraska 4-H. Last spring, there was this raise your hand effort where from all over America you could go and you could raise your hand to support 4-H. We were in the lead. We ended up in the 2nd spot. And that school in Columbus, Ohio somehow got us. But I would say they have 6 times as many people that live in that state. So we did our lifting, and it was wonderful affirmation of the value and the importance that we put on engaging our youth. 1 in 3 youth in Nebraska of age-eligible youth are actively engaged in our club programs and our after-school programs. It's just absolutely fantastic. So I'd like to give a shout out and a round of applause to all of you that are involved with this program. And then the last thing, just bring this up right to Monday. On Monday morning on the city campus, we had a bus. It's called Checking Our Blind Spots. It was a bus. CEOs from the top 100 multinational companies across America. And Ronnie Green signed this pledge back in spring. They created a bus, and the bus was a mobile diversity and inclusion bus that went around, just really highlighting that we all have implicit bias. We all have, we are the product of our upbringing, and that we have blind spots. I have a lot of blind spots. And so as we continue the dialogue as a community and communities within the community about the importance of being an open campus, an open community to diversity writ large of perspectives, of backgrounds, of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender. I think this is a nice way to remind us all. And in here, there's a quick video I want to share with you.
Just don't trust her.
She's a woman.
She's a woman.
This is a man's
She's
job.
clearly not educated.
Really? Does she even speak English?
That's not me. I'm not like that. You call it an honest mistake. Science calls it a blind spot. Our unconscious mind is a mysterious and powerful thing. It makes 90% of our decisions without us even knowing it. Our brains are overloaded with 11 million pieces of information every second. Yet we can only process about 40 of them. So we're wired to make cognitive shortcuts, using past experiences to make assumptions. And you know what happens when we assume. Our unconscious mind can put us on autopilot, determining where we sit, who we eat lunch with, who we turn to for advice, and who we choose to offer a helping hand. Living our lives with blind spots can put us in a tunnel. Same point of view, same decisions, same outcomes. We can find ourselves trapped in the land of snap judgments and misconceptions. We've all been on both the giving and receiving end of blind spots. Think about it. Who's talented? Who's able? Who can I trust? Who belongs? We've all been there. Blind spots are part of the human condition. Our choices have consequences for us and the people we interact with. By accepting that blind spots exist, we can stop. Imagine what possibilities exist if we could do it all over again. Different perspectives, inclusive relationships, diverse networks, better outcomes, seeing people for who they really are. People like you, with unlimited potential. We all have blind spots. Once you accept that you have them, you can choose to do something about it. It's time to check your blind spots and focus on what's possible.
So just a reminder, we all have blind spots. We're doing amazing work at being an inclusive and an inclusively excellent community. If you want to see this, this was posted on Nebraska Today on Monday, and you can read the article and look at the interviews. Ronnie's got information in there, and you can find this video. But just again, a quick way in 2 minutes to remind us to be mindful and intentional in this space. Okay, and with that, I'm going to pass off the clicker to our deans, and our first dean up is Tiffany Hang-Moss. Oh, you need the clicker.
Thank you. Well, good morning. It's definitely an exciting time for the college. This year we're celebrating our 146th anniversary. And I think that we would all agree that Kasner's in an amazing position to continue transforming the lives of our students, both in Nebraska and around the world. So as we lead up to the 150th celebration of the University of Nebraska, we want to take an opportunity to celebrate the impact that our college community has had over these past 146 years and highlight some of the exciting new teaching and learning initiatives that are underway. So in the brief time that I have with you, I'd like to share with you a few of these examples. So first, enrollment. The start of this academic year, we had the highest enrollment in the history of the college. And this increase in enrollment highlights the success of our recruitment, retention, and student success programming. It also emphasizes the importance of our global education partnerships. This fall, we welcomed 50 students from China as part of our 3+1 partnership with Northwest Ag and Forestry University. They were also joined by 50 students from Rwanda as part of our CUS program. The growth in enrollment also emphasizes the relevancy of the programming that we do in agriculture and natural resources, both to Nebraska and our global society. But it's not just about the numbers. Each of our students has their own story and their unique set of talents. And we have the opportunity to help them stretch those talents, define their purpose in our global society, and develop into the difference makers that we know that they will ultimately become. But none of this would be possible without a talented team of faculty and staff that are committed to our students, their success in the college. So on behalf of the college, I want to thank each of you for what you do for our students and also for their future success. There's also a number of exciting new initiatives that are underway in the college. An example of this is students as co-creators of their learning. This past spring semester, 10 Kasner students partnered with a team of faculty representing 6 different disciplinary areas to design an interdisciplinary capstone course. This effort serves as a model for course creation, innovation, student success programming, teamwork, and also investigative learning. These students are continuing to work with faculty mentors now to design a 4-year Kasner experience that is holistic, transformative, and innovative by linking curricular, experiential learning, and co-curricular programming. The spirit of the college is defined by the people. And we believe in the power of every person, and we have a commitment to giving back to Nebraska. An example of this is the Nebraska Human Resource Institute. It's a one-of-a-kind program, and our Department of Agricultural Leadership, Education, and Communication, which I'll put in a little plug, is celebrating their 100th anniversary, is home to this university-wide program. Through this program, 180 UNL students are partnered with 180 students in our Lutkin public school systems. And what this means is 360 of our youth in the state are engaged in leadership development through these investment relationships. Our university community is also having an impact through service learning. Students enrolled in our ALEC 102 interpersonal skills contribute over 14,000 hours of service learning annually to Nebraska communities. So again, these are just two examples of the power of our community. The last area that I want to lift up is the impact of our global partnerships and connections. We are a global community of learners with students, faculty, and staff from all over the world. We've created education pathways that extend learning beyond our state borders. And we have a global network of over 20,000 living alumni. And these alumni are doing some pretty amazing things. One example is Caleb Lindhorst. Caleb is an alum, but also a current IANR graduate student. And he has always challenged himself to exceed expectations. Caleb suffered from a traumatic brain injury, but he did not let that hold him back. Most of us would not have had the willpower, the strength, or the desire to do what Caleb has done. But that is how he has achieved big things. And he's just one example of how amazing our global network of alumni are. So, I know that was quick, trying to stay on time as the Vice Chancellor indicated, but these are just some examples of the programs, the stories that highlight the impact that our college community is having. And over the course of the next few months, as we lead up to that 150th anniversary, we will continue to share these stories of impact, as well as highlight some of the exciting new teaching and learning initiatives that are underway in the college. But again, I want to emphasize that none of this would be possible without a talented college community that is composed of students, staff, faculty, alumni, and partners. So again, thank you for all that you do. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Ron Rosati, who is Dean of NCTA. And NCTA is a very important partner for Kasner. And through our innovative partnership initiatives that we have underway, we are creating some unique educational experiences for students on both of our campuses. So Dr. Rosati.
Thank you, Tiffany. Let me spend just a minute to introduce our college. NCTA is our two-year campus out in southwest corner of the state. We teach entirely agriculture and veterinary technology. The town of Curtis that we're located in is a town of 900 people, no Starbucks, no interstate. We've got very good hunting, got a little resident elk herd in the community. We got mule deer, turkeys. It's a nice little community, but that kind of gives you a sense. It's a ranching and farming town. We have a statewide mission. Our focus is on workforce development and experiential learning. Part of our mission is to provide the opportunity for all residents of Nebraska to attend a higher education institution. And we do that by two ways. We're open admissions, so any high school graduate can come to NCTA. And the other way we provide access is by being low cost. So our tuition is $131.50 per semester credit hour. And that's for all students regardless of residency. That's for in-state, out-of-state, and international students. And for our in-state students, about 73% of them get scholarships and grants that cover the cost of tuition and fees. So we fulfill that mission of being open access and being very low cost. Most of our students end up paying no tuition and fees at NCTA. We have extensive on-campus experiential learning infrastructure. So there's lots of hands-on learning that goes on at NCTA. Our college farm is adjacent to the campus. We have 250 tillable acres within walking distance of the residence halls. We have 4 center pivots on campus. One of them is indoors for teaching purposes. Full livestock, horses, cattle, lots of exotics, dogs, including a number of stock dogs kept on campus. Welding shops, engine shops, indoor riding arena, shooting range just off campus. So there's lots of hands-on activities, and students don't need to go far to access those hands-on activities. So our mission is workforce development. How's the college doing at fulfilling that mission? First enrollment, we have the highest enrollment on campus now in 23 years. We're a small campus, 275 full-time students, but again, that's a 23-year record. About 63% of our students are women, and you can see the picture at the bottom here. These are our freshmen, and if you can see the details there, it shows that they are primarily young ladies. I had a tour just a week or so ago with a representative from Valmont Industries, and as we were walking around campus, he asked if we were a women's college. And I said, no, we're not. It looks that way sometimes. It depends on what part of campus you're at. There's been some national assessment of the college. We talked about that a little bit last year. So a number of years ago, the federal government started tracking graduates from institutions based on their social security number, and they looked at their tax returns every year after they graduated from the college, and they published those results. And for an institution like NCTA, that institutional data is very important. So the federal government, through what's called the College Scorecard, publishes the income and the employment rate of our graduates. And they do that 6 years after graduation and 10 years after graduation. A number of entities use that data to rank colleges nationally. And so last year, when the data first became widely available, Forbes magazine ranked us as the number 28 trade school in the United States. And this year, that ranking has changed. We're now the number 16 trade school in the United States based on the success of our graduates. Graduation rate, employment rate, and persistence in employment when they leave. Some other entities have done some additional assessment, and this year we are the top two-year college in Nebraska and one of the top in the United States for graduate salary 10 years after graduation. And that's looking at all two-year colleges across the United States, which is quite phenomenal when you consider that that includes the Florida institutions, the New York institutions, the California institutions. It includes students in healthcare and aeronautics and lots of other engineering technology areas. Our little school in southwest Nebraska, our students are earning salaries better than most two-year students across the United States. We're actually ranked 11 nationally in that parameter. And in employment, we're ranked number 7 nationally. We're quite proud of that. There's lots of other data in terms of the technical strength of our students. We assess that also, and they rank among the top in the United States when compared to other ag school graduates in terms of their technical skills. But the bottom line is the faculty and staff are doing a great job of fulfilling our mission, which is workforce development for our Nebraska residents. And a big part of that is due to our partnership with CASNR and IANR. So I want to express an appreciation to Tiffany and our other partners in CASNR for the great partnership that we have. Our students are successful, increasingly so because of that partnership. We're very interested in strengthening that. Let me give you some examples of what's in place now. We have a transfer pipeline called Link to Lincoln. We started working on that about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's now fully in place. And as a result of that, the transfer growth from NCTA graduates coming to CASNR has grown from 6% to about 20% of our graduating class. We're quite proud of that. We want to see that grow. We have 9 transfer agreements in place, allowing a student that starts at NCTA to graduate from CASNR in 4 or 5 years. We have some new faculty partnerships. We have a joint faculty position between NCTA and Nebraska Extension in Omaha for urban agriculture. And we now have some faculty at NCTA that have professor of practice status with a CASNR department, and they're starting to teach some courses for credit at both CASNR and Curtis. We've done some adjustment to our curriculum at NCTA so that it dovetails closer with the curriculum here at UNL. Much of that's been on the gen ed side, so we teach the full thing. We have mostly ag courses, but 15 to 30% of our curriculum is general education also. So we've modified our gen ed curriculum so that same titles, same student learning outcomes as courses at UNL. But we'd like to keep growing our partnership with CASNR and IANR, and some areas that we're looking at are expanding skills development partnerships. So, for example, this past summer we had some students from the CUSP Scholars, about 46 students from Rwanda, came to NCTA specifically to get experience with skills development in a broad range of agricultural areas. So they learned artificial insemination, for example. Some of them actually got certified as AI technicians. They learned welding. There's some at the bottom here you see practicing their welding, farming skills, lots of hands-on technology from across the range of agricultural disciplines. We'd like to expand that. We have a full range of veterinary facilities on campus, for example. We have a clinic, a surgery, pathology labs, necropsy labs, and we teach all the full range of hands-on skills in animal science and veterinary technology, ag mechanics. And so we'd like to expand our partnerships with Kasner to offer more opportunities for some of the students you work with that might want a camp-type experience for skills development. We have opportunities for graduate students that might want to spend a semester or two gaining teaching experience. So for example, this current semester we have a visiting professor living in our residence halls, teaching 3 classes on campus, and the room in the residence hall is part of her compensation package. She's a veterinarian. She's on campus 3 days a week, 3.5 days, and then she goes back home. And your graduate students could do the same thing. If it fits the teaching needs of our campus and you want to, say, a PhD student that's about to graduate working on his dissertation, might want to gain some teaching experience when he goes out to apply for a faculty job, we can provide that experience. There's pay involved. There's housing on campus, the whole 9 yards. So we're open to those kinds of discussions. And we're also looking at growing additional collaborative programming. For example, I mentioned that we teach gen ed, and we teach our students how to be successful across the range of skills, and that includes life skills. We teach them how to grow cattle, but we also teach them how to raise children and how to be good partners in a relationship and how to manage their finances and that sort of thing. And we're working with the College of Education and Human Sciences here at Kasner to gain some modules that we can use in our curriculum because we don't have the expertise that, say, Education and Human Sciences has in those areas. It's an example of one area where we're growing collaborative programming. We very much, again, appreciate that partnership, and that's coordinated, of course, by Dr. Beth Dahl, our Interim Dean of Education and Human Sciences. So on that note, I'd like to invite Dr. Dahl forward to give us an update on what's going on in her college.
Yeah, I need my third hand. So I am Beth Dahl, the Interim Dean of the College of Education and Human Sciences. We are the other college that's linked to IANR, and in it's close to our 15th year as a combined college. You notice we no longer call ourselves the new college. So our combined college really has as a common identity that we prepare professionals. So professionals are dietitians, athletic trainers, textile merchandising, special ed teachers, speech pathologists, psychologists, counselors, marriage and family therapists. And what's really very interesting about that is that in most cases, these are professions that Nebraska sorely needs. And so in our programs, we have a special responsibility to meet the needs of the state as well as to grow the college and build the knowledge base and the scholarship for these professions. A special challenge that we have is that almost all of these professions are requiring some supervised experiences. And those supervised experiences are, of course, very resource hungry. So, for example, our teachers spend 12 weeks full-time in a classroom in their student teaching, but they'll also have at least 3 practica before that altogether accrue to another 1,200 hours of supervised experience. So that's where it becomes really very critical that we touch the state well. And that's a point where IANR and our linkages to IANR have been especially helpful to us. So if we are preparing a group of dietitians that are going to work in Nebraska, we want them to know how to work in Lincoln and Omaha, but we also want them to be prepared to work in Winnebago or even some of our smaller towns, able to work with immigrant and refugee populations that they might encounter in Lexington. So we're working very hard to make sure that those supervised experiences match the population that our graduates are going to have to go out and work. Now, one of our programs in this area that we've started this year started with an idea from Mike Boehm, who said he didn't understand why we had the city campus and the east campus, and right in the middle was the Malone neighborhood, and no one was really involved there. And so we have, as one of our initiatives this year, we have started a partnership with the Malone Center. We already have some of our students from teacher education, from marriage and family therapy working in that center, and we have a timeline. We're building more because that's the kind of community we want our graduates to work in. Another burden that comes from preparing professionals is accreditation. If you have never had to prepare a national accreditation self-study, I wish you the best. I wish you never have to do that. These are terrible, onerous procedures to go through, but they're critical to the employability of our graduates. And so this year, we have had successful accreditation reviews in athletic training, in marriage and family therapy, and in our teacher education programs that stretch across 3 departments. And that is a major success to go through those. So given that we are almost in our 15th year as a college, one of the things that was very important for us was to redefine our priorities as a college. You know, our early priorities had a lot to do with how we were going to successfully combine across Teachers College and the College of Family Sciences. So how is that even going to happen? And now it's time for us to, given that we are a very successful and cohesive college, to think about how we're going to move forward. So since December of last year, we've been doing a lot of work across faculty, staff, and our students in deciding just what are our strategic priorities. And I want to call your attention to 3 of them, because once again, you'll see the footprint of IANR and how our IANR connections really are integral to our identity as a college. One of them is at the top of this, Engage Nebraska. We're preparing professionals for Nebraska. We want to make sure that we're engaged in those communities. They know who we are. They know who we are graduating. They know the kinds of research and scholarship we do, and they can tell us the questions they need us to answer, and we can pull them into our plans. So how do we fully engage the state? We've done a lot of that on a faculty member by faculty member basis, but what we're working on now is really integrating that at the college level and across all 7 of our departments, including the departments that were not traditionally IANR connected. And I want to particularly thank Mike Boehm and Chuck Hibbard for being a big player in helping us do that. The second one I want to draw your attention to is practice-based research. We do have a strong tradition of research in the college. Over the last 15 years, departments that were not research intensive have become so. And we certainly have a nice track record that's building year by year in how to fund that research. But what we've decided to focus on over the next 5 to 10 years is practice-based research. If we prepare practitioners, if most of our faculty have been in practice at one time or another, then we're uniquely poised to answer the questions that are relevant to practice. And that's where we're focusing our attention over the next several years. And finally, of course, we're emphasizing diversity and inclusion. You may have noticed, if you've been in Nebraska for more than a year, that our demographics in this state are changing rapidly. we realize that a student that we graduate in May is going to be working in their professional life on into the 2070s, maybe longer. The people they work with, the youth they work with, will be living their productive adult lives up into the next century. So in many ways, we have to prepare our students to serve the state in the 22nd century. So going forward, we have to think about demographics and how they're changing and always pay attention to that. So just a few numbers. I'm always in awe of how well IANR pulls together numbers, and we're learning that as well. We have about 50,000 alumni of the college, so a rich tradition of a presence, especially in the state of Nebraska. Even now, with our international enrollment and out-of-state enrollment, 80% of our students are still coming to us from Nebraska. Most of them go back to Nebraska and become the professions that serve the United Nations goals that Mike Boehm was talking about in Nebraska communities. So that's ultimately our purpose. And I want to introduce Chuck Hibbard.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all. I'm going to try this and see if it works. We have 15 new extension professionals who have been onboarding the last 2 days. They're in the audience. Would you please stand up? Come on, here we go. Would you welcome these folks, please? We have been so blessed in the 6 years that I've been here to hire amazing talent, and that track record doesn't stop. It just keeps going and going. So what I want to do today is highlight 3 specific projects that we're working on, that we're excited about, that maybe give you a better sense of what modern contemporary extension is about. And also, if you're interested, we would invite you to become part of these projects. So the first one is called UNL TAPS. And this is a project that was created by Darren Rudnick and Chuck Burr and Matt Stockton out at West Central. And what's really exciting about this project is that it has a new approach of engaging learners, okay? And this is big for extension. Traditionally, we've done a lot of sage on the stage, expert model kinds of things, and that's not bad. But we know today that more and more of our clients, of the people that we work with, are well educated. They have great life experiences. They have a lot to bring to the table. So the idea that we know more than they do is probably not really true. We have science-based information. They have real life experiences. You blend those and you can have amazing conversations. And that's really what this UNL TAPS program is about. It is a program where this year 27 teams of farmers, a team from NCTA, a team of Nebraska Extension professionals, competed to try to grow corn as efficiently as possible. And those 27 teams were able to use a replicated variable rate irrigation system at West Central. They each had 4 replications of their plot, and they got to decide what hybrid to grow, the plant population, how much water to apply. They had all kinds of technology, aerial, satellite, ground-based technology to give them data so they could make better decisions. And last year and again this year, there were several teams that never went to their plot the entire growing season. They used data to make decisions. Now, all that sounds really cool, right? But here's the really cool part. And that is at the West Central Field Day in August and again in December, all of these 27 teams get together and they talk about the choices they made, the decisions they made, the approach that they took to try to win the competition. And by the way, in this competition, yield of corn is acknowledged, but it's not the point. What's really focused on are 2 things. One is profit, so they have to market their crops, so Matt Stockton's involved in this. But the other thing that's focused on is water use efficiency, crop per drop, literally measured and then shared with these folks, and then they talk about the practices that they use to try to get there. So very exciting project. Love what Darren and Chuck and Matt are doing on this project. The second one that we're also very excited about, a couple of years ago we contracted with Don Mackey. Some of you may know Don. He was the creator and instigator of the Rural Entrepreneurship Center here in Nebraska. And he told me a couple of years ago, I'm getting close to the end of my career and I'd like to do something really special for Nebraska. And I said, I think I have a job for you. And so we contracted with Don to help lead our community vitality programs. And we have 12 very talented educators, about 4 specialists that work in these areas of community vitality. The latest initiative that they're putting together is the Nebraska Entrepreneurship Initiative. Nebraskans are entrepreneurs by nature. And if you don't believe me, go look through a farmer's machine shed. They create things, they build things, they market those things, they just create amazing opportunities. So this entrepreneurship initiative has 2 pieces. Nebraska SourceLink, this is patterned after a national organization called SourceLink that brings resources, experts, all kinds, everyone in the entrepreneurial ecosystem into play to work with people who want to be a successful entrepreneur. SourceLink in the last 15 years has made over 400,000 referrals of entrepreneurs to resources that they can use to get started. So we are replicating that in Nebraska, working in partnership with the Nebraska Business Development Center at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. And then the second part is what we're calling e-communities. And this is also patterned after Network Kansas, which is an organization that's focused on how do we build an entrepreneurial community locally so that bankers and economic developers and other people that are interested in this space can help entrepreneurs figure out how to start and how to be successful. So mentoring, resources, all kinds of things to help local entrepreneurs make good decisions as they try to start. So this is also a very exciting initiative. And then the third one that I want to mention to you is a regional food systems initiative. And Rick Rasby is leading this group. And it's been an amazing conversation, Rick, because one of the things that we know about Nebraska is we have tremendous food production capacity. One of the things that we're challenged by in Nebraska is a high rate of obesity, and we are number 43 in the country in vegetable consumption, which contributes to that. So we know there are opportunities to increase Nebraska-produced products, fruit, vegetables, small animals, products, etc. So locally sourced foods that help create livelihoods for people, values-driven. Some people do this because it's just something that's important to them. It can also contribute to the economy. So we would like to grow this sector of Nebraska food production. As you look at the team, and I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out, but a very diverse team that's interested in this effort and thinking about how do we increase the supply of fresh, safe, reasonably priced, locally produced products for Nebraskans. So 3 very exciting projects that I wanted to share with you today. And here is our cleanup hitter who's going to hit it out of the park is Dr. Tala Awada, Ag Research Division. Tala.
Well, thank you all for being here today. There we go. I have to press hard.
Chuck broke it.
Well, many of you who have attended the August ARD faculty meeting heard from Dean Archie Clutter about our strategic mission, which focuses on strengthening our research to ensure a resilient food system and to ensure a healthy future for the people of Nebraska and beyond. So we are working on developing and building strategic framework that would address the 6 IANR communities that Vice Chancellor Mike Boehm mentioned before, which evolve around the healthy humans, the healthy agriculture, natural resources, the stress biology, the computational sciences, economic vitality, and science literacy. And we focused our operation and our planning into 5 different areas. Of course, we want to continue supporting our faculty, our new teams. We want to encourage team science, high-impact research. We want to continue to focus on our centers, academic centers, and the new discoveries they make. So this is one of our priorities. The other priority, we want to strengthen existing and foster new collaborations and engagement with the private industry. We have seen some of those presented, and we'll continue working on fostering these new relationships. One other aspect we want to work with, or we are working with the KASNER on finding new innovative ways to reinvent the graduate education. We know that the students, graduate students, are now challenged with more career path. They have more interests, so we want them to be ready for future career and future life learning experience. Of course, you can't do your research without state-of-the-art facilities. So this is, again, one of our emphasis to provide to you the infrastructure so you can do high-impact research. And finally, communication. Communication, peer-to-peer communication, internal communication, communication with our stakeholders, and beyond. We have had many successes, like Vice Chancellor Boehm mentioned before. We can't list all of them. I'm listing here some of the recent large team efforts, successful efforts that have occurred in IANR and have been led by faculty in IANR, which include the Translational Plant Sciences Initiative, the Beef System Initiative, the recently funded or formed National Institute for Antimicrobial Resistance for Research and Teaching, the Nebraska Food for Health Center, and the Foundation for Food and Ag Research and fellowship program that we are part of. We continue to grow, we continue to have impact, so we can't do it without you. We have record high numbers. We are now ranked 37 globally in the area of agriculture and forestry. We have over 340 affiliated faculty with ARD. Those faculty reside in 15 academic units, 3 district extension and research centers, and 19 academic centers in the institute. We have record high funding in sponsored research. It's an increase of 20% since 2014. You were able to bring, and congratulations, over $54 million last year, and you are mentoring 719 graduate students. This is 11% increase since 2014. So I want to congratulate you all. We have had great discoveries this year, new knowledge generated. Again, we can't list all of it, but I want to highlight the Nebraskan acid by Ed Cahoon. This was an international team effort. 2 fatty acids were created, one in Nebraska, and we're very proud of you to have named it Nebraskanic acid. And the other one is at the, what's called Haozong University, and they named it Johanic acid. It's a collaboration between our team and China, and the publication was published in Nature just recently. Another brand new effort. That's congratulations to you. Another very recent effort, we are part of a 15-institution DOE-funded project. Again, Ed Cahoon and Tom Clementi led the efforts from IANR to increase, the objective is to increase oil in sorghum. So that's a brand new project. Congratulations to you again, Ed and team. And so I wanna thank you all again for all your efforts. We appreciate your work. We can't do it without you. Your success is our success. So thank you all.
I'll take this. You can have that. Pretty amazing, and I said it the very first time I was here, that the administrators that just were here, while their leadership is absolutely critical, we are here to support you, our students, staff, faculty, who are driving our mission areas forward. So thanks to all the deans for moving us along. Well, I'm going to take the next few minutes and just talk a little bit. We talked about our people. We talked about our amazing programs, or at least a quick run through Some changes are taking place. Just a couple of examples. The Christensen building up at NREC. We had people, we cannibalized 2 laboratories. We had so many people working up there. So we were able, in fact, next month we open up a near $2 million extension of the Christensen Education and Research building. That's fantastic. Our colleagues out at the Panhandle Research and Extension Center, the very first trip I made out there, they just were very, very forthcoming. It's tough when you don't have places for your students, your visiting scientists to come and work. And so we put 2 modular homes there on the property that we can have up to 20, I think 22 people that can live there and work there. The global engagement, we're not talking a lot about global engagement today, but I will tell you that this office that started with 1 person in a cubby up in Alan Moeller's space on the 3rd floor, and then moved to 2 people. And then when ALEC, who's celebrating, and oh, by the way, today, they're offering us cake. So stick around. At 11:30 we'll go down. We have a picnic that's made available completely out of the graciousness of Premier Catering, but ALEC has purchased cake for their 100th birthday. But ALEC used to be on the 3rd floor in Ag Hall, and ALEC got picked up and moved out, and then we colonized that space. The Office of Global Engagement was crammed into, I would almost call them closets. There were a couple of nice offices, but for an office that is so critically involved with our global engagement program, that seemed like an oversight. And so we began a plan, and I talked about this in January, about pivoting them to get them into a more visible academic main street. So they now are on the 2nd floor in the old Vice Chancellor and Vice President's office. They've taken that space, and they are right across the street from ARD, down the hallway from Extension, and a floor up from Kasner. Those 207 Chinese and Rwandan students and our graduate students who are engaging in our faculty, and Valmont and Balin, and the list goes on, much easier to find, and we finally have that office and space that's important. And so that's exciting. In a big way, on East Campus, work continues with Ruth Staples. So now that Burr and Fetty are part of our history, you're seeing some neat stuff going on with our recreation space. I'll talk about that in a minute, but Ruth Staples is getting a new home. We're working on that fundraising. Beth Dole is leading that. The recreation and tennis courts, you've seen it. Some of you have said when we put in the parking lots over by the law school, what are you doing with the tennis? We need more. Well, you're seeing it happen right now. It'll be open for the Purdue game. So on September 29th, that's a week from this Saturday, you'll see it. It's just fantastic space, and it augments our ability to have work-life balance on this campus. For faculty and students, 2 big projects. This building that we're sitting in, you can get a sense of this already. Over here on the left, you're getting a rendition. Folks, this room will be doubled in size. We're going to be moving it, adding on to the south. The old entranceway, the current front door, is going away. The new front door is going to be through the dining hall on the 2nd floor. This crazy floor plan up here, you'll walk out this room, you won't be going down steps, it'll all be normalized floor plate. The dining hall is being moved from the 2nd floor. It's being moved down to the 1st floor, so it's nice and close for our students at Massengale. We've worked out a deal where you don't need to be on the meal plan to go and have lunch or breakfast or coffee. So it'll be a la carte. So faculty and staff and visitors and students can have this vibrant interaction space that we're missing, right? There'll even be a name brand coffee store here. And going back in our history, there used to be an amazing house with an amazing porch that Charles Bessie and his wife would engage people. This will have a wraparound porch that looks over the green space, looking towards Philly Hall and the Food Industrial Building, and that space we're affectionately, some students helped us, affectionately calling that the Meadows. And while that's happening, I'm happy to report that we've had a transformative gift. We brought in the last $5 million necessary to all donor-driven, $22.5 million to redo the C.Y. Thompson Library. And so that project is also moving. This project is starting here on October 1. In fact, you can already start to see some things are being cleaned out. This building will be open during that process. We will have it open again for the fall of 2020. And so it'll be a little bit noisy. Ron is our lead, working with a multidimensional team. He can answer questions during the picnic. C.Y. Thompson is going to be incredible. It will become the new home for the Angler Entrepreneurship Program. If you want to get a visual, just think about Adele Commons, Learning Commons. That's what we will have on the East Campus. There'll be a small collection of books on the very first floor. There'll be a testing center similar to Adele Commons North. The first floor will have a lot of cool collaborative space. There'll be 2 front doors. There'll be a front door for dentistry and for law and for speech pathology and for audiology, and then there'll be a front door on the Meadows. Be pretty exciting. Another big excitement piece here, you can look at the cartoon. I was a little punchy when we put this together. The mouse is trying to find its way out of the maze and found somebody who was quite comfortable hanging out. But we received a $5 million gift to 2 main donors to continue our work with the Nebraska Food for Health Center. I think you all understand that the journey there. It's looking at our gut microbiomes, harvesting gut microbiomes, understanding the complex diversity of our microbiome, looking at how those diverse microbiomes in different individuals metabolize carbohydrates and other proteins and other nutrients, and then how those metabolites actually bring health outcomes, whether it's attacking obesity, heart health, cognition, learning in young children, cognition in the older folks. Very exciting time. So the model's pretty simple. They collect microbiomes from humans representing a diversity. They then train those microbiomes in glass and feed them metabolites, pre-digested plant material. At this point, look at the metabolomic profile, take those microbiomes and humanize germ-free mice. That's what it's called, humanizing the mice, where they take these young mice that have no microbiome and inject or insert the human microbiome in the gut. They can then feed those humanized mice different metabolites, different probiotics, prebiotics, and see if the health outcomes manifest themselves. If they do it in mice, then they can move up to the marmoset colony that we have at UNO, then back over to the Nebraska Innovation Campus, working with the Food Processing Center and commercial partners to actually commercialize prebiotics and probiotics. So we're thinking about where do we put this new $5 million mouse-free germ-free facility. I hope there are mice in there. We're looking at the Nebraska Innovation Campus, and the other part is to add on to our Life Science Annex that would then connect in a nice way Morrison Life Science Laboratory to the Life Science Annex to our $38 million Veterinary Diagnostics Center, which would allow for a really amazing complex here on the East Campus. Stand by for that. Public-private partnerships. We already heard from Tala. Part of the reason Archie Clutter's not here is because Archie, with a group of our faculty, are over in Fort Collins. I know, tough duty. They are visiting with colleagues from Texas A&M, Kansas State, Iowa State, Colorado State. We're the 5th one, looking at agro-security, biosecurity, and how land-grant universities can augment what happens in DOD, DHS, NIH, all the Beltway complexes, how we could do that here in the heartland. But I want to talk to you, and I'm just going to highlight big things are happening with Henningsen Foods. They're the parent company of CUPE is the parent company of Henningsen Foods. CUPE is out of Tokyo. They're a $5 billion company. They have 75 subsidiary companies on 4 continents and 9 different countries. And in America, they have a subsidiary called Henningsen in Nebraska and something called DQ in California. Their claim to fame is they make mayonnaise and salad dressing. And right now in Japan, 54% of the market at the grocery stores and the restaurants is dominated by CUPE. And guess where they get their eggs to make CUPE mayonnaise in Japan? From David City, Nebraska. So we're working with them. They've signed a contract with some of our researchers. They have now a physical presence at the Nebraska Innovation Campus. And they're looking to bust into the North American market, and the epicenter of that and the research partnership is here in Nebraska. Costco, I think you're all pretty familiar. They own a subsidiary called Lincoln Premium Poultry. We've talked about that before, how Lincoln Premium Poultry right now is investing and working with 125 producers to diversify their production system. Those 125 farm families, right now they're at about 93 farm families actively engaged. Those farm families are going to the banks to take out about $250 million worth of loans to build 488 poultry houses that will then yield 2 million broiler chickens every week. 5.5 to 6 pound broiler chickens that then will be sold at their Costco outlets. So we are partnering with them right now in a variety of initiatives. I'm convinced that we will not be able to supply your research teams, you, with the high quality, really dynamic infrastructure needs that you have without public-private partnerships. To get to this point, we're talking right now with Costco real time. Clint Crable and Doug Zaleski are working with our industry liaison office and talking about how Costco might actually come on to NREC and build a state-of-the-art commercial broiler production facility. They would build it, they'd pay for it, they'd supply the chickens, they'd pay us to do research, we'd use it in our teaching and learning, we'd have to staff it, and then they would process the birds that weren't necessarily needing to be euthanized during the process. I think these are the kinds of partnerships. I'd much rather put our energy and our financial resources into the talent and not into brick and mortar, but that means we have to figure out how to have these partnerships, and Costco is doing that dance with us today. Another partner, we were at Microsoft, 15 of us, including Bob Wilhelm, our new ORED VC, along with Lance Perez, all of our deans, 4 of our faculty. Mark Bolschweid joined us. We visited Redmond, Washington, visited with several of their senior leaders and their team members to look at how we could leverage Microsoft's artificial intelligence platforms, machine learning platforms to drive precision agriculture, precision natural resource management, precision education, and precision health outcomes. It's pretty exciting, and we're doing some really neat early stage piloting with them, and I look forward to sharing more information there. And then Tala already mentioned the National Institute for Antimicrobial Resistance Research and Education. This has been a long deal in the making, and we knew we couldn't go it alone, so we partnered with Iowa State Vet School and the College of Agriculture, and then we partnered with our affiliated academic med centers and the Mayo Clinic, and we put in a bid responding to an RFP to be designated as a national institute. There were 9 other competitors in that process. It got whittled down to 2. We were one of the 2. And then just before 4th of July, we found out we were the selected entity. While there was no immediate dollar amount brought into this, NIH, NSF, FAR, there's $70 million out there that is focused on antimicrobial resistance and stewardship. Rod Moxley is our faculty that is leading that charge, but had many folks helping get us to that point. Dale Grodelucian was a key leader in that in the early stages. I just want to put this on your radar that we are exploring deep relationships. We call them strategic affinity partnerships. We expect, for example, Costco, we've talked about 40 internships for our undergraduate students. We've talked about 2 named pathologists or 2 named residents in pathology at the Vet Diagnostic Center. Shoot, we've even talked with them about offering to the 250,000 living alumni, faculty, staff, and students at the University of Nebraska the option to purchase a gold version of a Costco membership. You get the chance to buy in if you want, and you get treated as if you were a Costco affiliate, associate. And for every dollar one of us would spend every year, we'd get a rebate check back to the University of Nebraska for 1 or 2% that could then be used to fuel our programs. So this is far different than just a transactional deal. It's trying to think creatively. I just want to come and talk about the budget very quickly. I want to keep this simple. Here's what has happened since I've come here. We have given back $4.5 million, $4.3 million in one-time cash that we've had to cut and give back as part of our share of the state's budget demise. But we've had to cut our permanent funding to the Institute of Ag and Natural Resources, which in general is only 1/4 of what the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's had to give back. So you just multiply that number. So Ronnie Green has had to push back about $11 million, of which 2.5 we had to come up with. And they're tough conversations and tough choices, but this is what we've done thus far. Where are we going? Well, I think there's some room for optimism. In February was the first forecasting board assessment that actually showed the state wasn't doing maybe as bad as we thought. And that was positive. And to be candid with you, that forecasting board assessment in February helped the unicameral stand up and support the University of Nebraska instead of going with a 4% cut, which is what the governor proposed for us. They were able, through their due diligence, come up with and justifying only a 1% cut. Still hurt, but it was far less than what we were looking at. Okay, so that's the good news. The second piece of good news is that when the state of Nebraska finalized its books for the last fiscal year, they were $37 million in the black, above projected. So that trend that started in February continued through that last year in a pretty good spot. So that's the good news. Now, a lot of things have happened here in the last 6 months with the global tariffs and so forth, so we'll see where this goes. Another piece of I think, good and bad news, depending. If you're a student, you're saying, oh no. If you're a parent, you're saying, oh no. But I think President Bounds, with the support of the Nebraska University Board of Regents, went to the Board of Regents and said, listen, we have done our share. We have cut, and we've cut. And now we are cutting into the bone of our programs, and this is not good for long term. We're willing to have the difficult conversations, and the grit of this group, the grit of those who are from Northeast Nebraska, the grit of you in the room affiliated with the Rural Futures Institute, who are on the front line in a very public way, that grit, President Bounds is fighting for us. And he has, with the approval of the Board of Regents, sent a message to the governor and the unicameral that if, in fact, we have another 2% mid-year rescission this year, that he will have the option, not that he will do it, but has the option to raise mid-year tuition to accommodate that rather than cutting deeper into our programs. It's not a good story, however you slice it, but at least a realization that we're getting to a point where they're critical point of no return with some programs. Okay, so some dates to keep in mind. The forecasting board is going to continue to provide us information. We have the elections here coming up in early November, and then come January, we slide right back into a 90-day session, and this is another biennial budget year. So we're going to be paying attention to these dates. I will tell you, we are on it. We're on it to the point we're on November 7th over at the Vet Diagnostic Center. We are hosting a dinner for the unicameral. For all of the new senators, all of the old senators, we're going to showcase IANR with our new unicameral members. So we've been busy planning along the way. That's all I really want to say. I'm somewhat optimistic about where the budget situation is. I will tell you I'm fiscally conservative, so we are planning. We're planning as if there's a 2% rescission. We're planning if there's a 2 to 4% permanent cut to our budget. And we're trying to do that in a way that minimizes difficult impacts on your units. And when I say we, that is the collective leadership team of the Institute. Last thing I want to do is related to the budget. Both Rural Futures Institute and Haskell Ag Lab, in a very public way, were put into the media. And I learned a lot, and I appreciate the candor. I appreciate the patience. I appreciate the passion. I understood. I was empathetic. But what I said early on, especially with Haskell Ag Lab, was that while it was important that we understood the role of this entity that's been with us for 61 years, and while it's had high points and low points, and while it's contributed to society in lots of great ways, we had to do a deeper dive on our role as the People's University in Northeast Nebraska. And the only way I know how to do that is just to get in the car and make a trip, or 3 or 4. So Jesse Brophy, if you think you have it rough this morning, poor Jesse had to travel 11 days with me as we went on we made 35 stops. You can see our crisscrossing across I'm down to 89, I've only got 4 counties that I need to get to yet, and I'm going to get to them here in the next 3 months. But this was impactful, and I learned some things. The only part of this trip that I was a little touchy, and if Dennis Ferraro is in the room, I apologize, I don't see him, was this kid comes up at the Madison County Fair, and he comes up, he found the Vice Chancellor, he says, "Hey, mister, you want to hold my snake?" I'm like, no. Then I was like, "Does it bite?" "No." I'm like, okay, so there's my fake smile. I'm like, "Dude, what kind of snake is this?" He says, "Oh, just be patient, it'll wrap itself around you." I'm like, great. So it was pretty interesting. I'm beyond my time, and I'm now into your lunchtime. Learned a lot, but here are 4 things I learned about. Number 1, I heard a clarion call that there's a desire from the residents of that part of the state that we do a better job as the People's University of engaging our community college partners, our state school, in that case Wayne State, and the 2 tribal community colleges that are also land-grant community colleges. And so I've heard that loud and clear at how we remove barriers for students to have success, and what does that look like. And Tiffany Heng-Moss is helping lead this charge. Second, I heard a clarion call, we hear it everywhere we go, about workers. Workers. But I heard a clarion call for feedlot workers, pen riders, typically folks that we in Kasner and CHS aren't educating and training. Incomes NCTA. So we're exploring with our partnership with Northeast Community College about how we might extend NCTA programming in Northeast Nebraska in a collaborative way to meet the needs of the Northeast. Water. We've talked a lot here in this state, I know you have, about water quantity, about conservation. Those are important topics. But we've also known since 1980 or before about issues related to water quality. And we really need to step it up, and we are in the thick of it, folks. We have amazing water scientists, and you can't talk about water without talking about soils. You can't talk about soils without talking about what happens on those soils, whether it's livestock farming, feedlot operations, cropping systems. So we are part of a very complex ecosystem in this state with our partners at the NRDs. In fact, on Sunday, I'm going to go over, and I didn't get to do that last year, visit with the 23 NRDs and all their board members. They have a conference in Kearney. Ron Yoder, Chittaranjan Ray, Peter McCormick have been working with the 4 NRD managers up there in northeast Nebraska in partnership with Extension, in partnership with Haskell Ag Lab, really thinking about creative ways that we can be responsive. It's a big deal. And in fact, one of the Microsoft projects that we're talking about is how we could use Microsoft's machine learning data visualization platforms to help us look at precision education, precision production, precision water, precision health outcomes in northeast Nebraska, and using a 13-county region right in the northeast as a test bed. So I hope that comes to fruition. And then the last thing is, I heard a lot that, hey, it's not just kids in Omaha or Lincoln that don't know where their food comes from, or that don't understand the food, water, energy, societal interaction. There are lots of rural kids who don't know. And so how can we use, and you've heard me use the frame, engagement zones, engagement centers. How can we use every single one of our physical locations across this amazing, beautiful state as an engagement zone? And the crazy idea there would be something like, imagine every 4th grader in Nebraska as a school trip would come to one of our engagement centers and explore the food, water, energy nexus at an age-appropriate level. And we have a lot of programming in that space that we can leverage. So I just leave you with this quote from a colleague from the University of North Carolina in their government school. Basically, it boils down to, this isn't an either or. It's rural Nebraska or rural America versus urban. We're intricately and intimately linked, and we have to be paying attention to both of those. And I think we do this every day at IANR. So with that, I just want to thank you for your time. I know that we ran late. I'd be happy just to stand up here and visit with you and take one-on-one questions, as would the deans, while the rest of the folks go down and grab their cake and their lunch. Thank you every day for what you do. We couldn't do it without us. We're a team, and it's just really an amazing privilege to be a part of this group. So thank you very much.